Well, stay with us. Let's bring in immigration lawyer Mo Goldman. He could help bring some perspective into this. He joins us by phone from Tucson, Arizona. So, Mo, first of all, your reaction to this ruling?
I'm excited, and thank you for having me on, Elaine. It seems like as soon as the decision came out, my phone just exploded with celebratory texts from colleagues. It's a big victory for people who do immigration law on behalf of immigrants all over the world. And so, we think justice is taking place today.
Well, obviously, you do have that. You're an immigration lawyer. But really, if you look at this, what does this mean? Is it business as usual? People can come in and out of the country. What does it mean?
Well, it means that exactly that. I mean, for now, it keeps everything as it should be going instead of, going back and forth as it seemed at the beginning when this executive order came out. In other words, individuals who were, basically frozen as far as being able to enter the country from the 7 Muslim-majority countries and the refugees can continue to enter the United States as they were doing before the executive order.
Mo, this is Sean Callebs. I don't want to throw water on what you're saying, but it's going to move on to the U.S. High Court right now, and that is going to be interesting to see how this plays out. A lot of legal critics were very critical of the way the Trump administration attorney argued this case before the Ninth Circuit. What kind of changes, I hate to get you to play the other team's hand, but what is going to change? Because Trump is certainly going to play. What's at stake here is the safety of the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the government, the Department of Justice, is going to really have to key in on what sort of tactics were taken ahead of time before they prepared this executive order. Like what sort of metrics and decision making had taken place, because I think that was something that really derailed the government when they were making their arguments, in that they couldn't really, it seemed like it was hard for the attorney to defend the argument, and then to see that, Trump's own words were then basically thrown back at him, especially if you look at the decision, which of course is 29 pages, so it's, you have to be a speed reader to get through it this quickly. But one of the things that really stands out to me is that they look at the religious discrimination and the discriminatory impact of this executive order, and in doing so, they take Trump's words about his intent to implement a, quote, Muslim ban, and they use it against him.
Exactly, which is what we saw unfold on the campaign trail. Yeah. And while the court specifically asked, look, this isn't a ban against all Muslims, Purcell, the attorney for the state of Washington, simply argued, look, if it's aimed at any Muslims, then it's discriminatory. I want to move on just a little bit and focus on what Donald Trump has said about the judiciary and judges in particular. Is this shocking to you that a president comes out and is so critical?
Yes, it is shocking. It's to me, it really is demoralizing to see an executive, take shots at federal court judges that are basically doing their job. I mean, it is an attempt to diminish the judiciary in the eyes of the public, and it does nothing but hurt, I think, the Constitution, the idea that we have, 3 branches and they should serve as checks and balances for one another, and to have one end of the spectrum, bashing the other end, it doesn't do any good ultimately for our country. I think it really hurts, and I obviously would hope that he would stop doing that, but that may be wishful thinking.
Mo, I have a 2-part question for you. First of all, were you surprised that all 3 judges were in agreement here? And secondly, Sean mentioned the next step, which will go to the Supreme Court. For all of those people watching what will happen next, what sort of timetable are we looking at here? How long will it take to get there? And with only 8 justices currently on the court. How long can this play out?
So first of all, regarding the 3-0 decision, I mean, that, to me, that spoke volumes. It made it clear that, you know, regardless of their, you know, political background, whether they were Republican or Democrat, they all agreed that in the public interest, the states of Minnesota and Washington won out over the Trump administration in the Department of Justice as far as showing that there was a good cause to stay this executive order. As far as the timeline going forward, that we've seen before that the Supreme Court can speed through and get hearings in and briefing in relatively quickly, especially when something as significant as this executive order is at stake. I think it's kind of hard to predict a timeline on this, but I would imagine that they're going to make this a priority. And of course, then it plays into the question of how does this work when you've got only a 4-4. Ultimately, it looks like a potential 4-4 split with no ninth justice up there, and so in a way, it may work in Trump's favor to have this go a little bit slower while there's confirmation on the ninth justice, and in the state's favor and other interested parties, it may benefit for it to go through in a more expedited fashion.
All right, Mo Goldman, thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate your time.